Hey guys, welcome back to some more reviews. The Explorer 4 here, Horror 465, aka Nate Murphy. Welcome back to some more reviews. And today, no intro in this video because if I put the intro in this video, it's a cool concept. I wanted to have all my old school intros in these videos, but it takes about 7 hours to upload these videos. And yeah, I think it'll upload a lot faster if I leave the intros out. But, continuing our reviews in the Saw franchise, today we're talking about Saw 4. And to show you guys the case real quick, there's the front, back, it's a slipcover, and the DVD, which is a little bit lazy because it's kind of just a repaint of the previous discs, where it's like, oh yeah, what can we do? Oh yeah, we can use the saw blade. We'll just paint it red. It's like it's a little bit of a lazy thing. I know it's a nitpick, but you know, I think it's a little bit lazy they did that. The Saw 4 is a 2007 film. It's a 5.9 on IMDb. The third Saw movie directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, as well as the last movie directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. And Saw 4 for a lot of people is when the series just started really going downhill. And I can definitely agree with most people about that. It's a movie that, as you guys can see, doesn't get a rant. There is no rant in the title of this video, and mainly because I don't hate the movie. This is still more watchable than Saw 7 or Saw 5, at least for me. It's still, I guess, a time waster that you could watch for the gore and the traps. But really, there's nothing else to this movie. I mean, there's a couple other things, but we'll get into those when we get more into the review. But yeah, I mean, Saw 4 is just one of the weaker ones. I mean, it's just, there's not much to the story. There's not much to the characters. The sort of theme of these traps and the story and this movie doesn't really get explored that well. I'll be honest, direction by Darren Lynn Bousman, this is probably his worst direction in the Saw movies. I mean, it's just, the movie looks pretty bad. I'm not a big fan of how the movie looks. The lighting is just really bad in this movie. I think that David Hackle was still involved with the production design. It's, you know, one of the weaker production designs in the Saw movies. Just a lot of stuff in this movie is very weak. I mean, a weak story, a weak plot, a weak sort of theme to the story. Not the best acting. Probably only good acting from Strom, Hoffman, and the lead character, Rig. Those are probably the only good acting. And also a little bit of good acting from Jill Tuck. Also, Tobin Bell did some good acting as well. But, like, not as good as, like, Saw 1 or Saw 2 or Saw 3. And, you know, the characters just aren't that interesting in this movie. And also it has this thing where the big mystery with Saw 4 is that how is Jigsaw still doing these traps if he's dead? And it kind of has two twists at the end of the movie that kind of explain that. One of them kind of falls flat on its face. The other one is really well done, which we'll get into. But yeah, I mean, this is just a movie where, like, the music's pretty bad, the set design's pretty bad, the lighting's awful, the look of the movie is terrible, direction's pretty bad, the script is pretty bad because the story bounces around all over the place. And the story of Saw 4, I mean, you got it continuing right to Saw 3. Pretty much Hoffman and Rig are the only two people left from the previous Saw movies. And the movie opens up with probably the most iconic thing to come out of this movie. Probably the most memorable thing to come out of this movie as well. And that is the opening autopsy scene, which I think is just a very iconic thing. I think it kind of matches Saw 4. It's kind of like the only thing that I think of when I you know, think about Saw 4. It's like the only thing that really comes to mind is, oh yeah, it has that really cool autopsy scene where you have the really good makeup effect and just really good prop, not really prop, but just a good effect where you have John Kramer's autopsy, and it looks really realistic. And they carve open his body and they cut open his stomach and they find a tape in his stomach. And Hoffman comes in, Detective Hoffman from the previous movie, Saw 3, comes in, plays the tape, and the tape says that just because Jigsaw's dead doesn't mean his games will stop. And he promises that his games will continue. And he also promises that Hoffman will be tested. And then the movie opens up with this really cool trap where this one guy has his eyes sewn shut, and the other one has his mouth sewn shut. And it's kind of like one of the first competitive traps where only one can live and they have to battle to the death. It's a pretty cool trap, opening trap, pretty gory, pretty bloody. I liked it. And then we get into the story, which is about, Rigg finding out that pretty much everybody around him is dying. I mean, his best friend, Eric Matthews, is missing. His other friend, the detective lady she got killed in Saw 3. She got killed in the Death Angel trap or whatever it was, ripped her rib cage out. And those people are dead, and he's pretty much, it's just him and Hoffman that are left, and he just keeps on getting involved in things he shouldn't be. And he just doesn't realize that you can't save certain people. The Rigg character. And then the Rigg character ends up being the main focus of this next game. And pretty much the theme of this movie is that you can't save everybody. That, you can try your best, you can help them out, but you can't save everyone. And the character Rigg kind of struggles with that. And so throughout the movie, the traps are sort of like, Rigg can help them. He can give them directions, he can kind of give them tips, but he can't really get involved. The traps are sort of up to them. And I guess it's throughout the story, Jigsaw's trying to teach him that, you can't save everybody. And while that's going on, you have those traps going on, and then it cuts to Strom and his partner talking to Jill Tuck, and those scenes are just kind of boring, honestly. There's not much that happens in them. While that's going on, you have these flashbacks to John Kramer's life before he became Jigsaw, and the flashbacks are interesting, and you kind of see his first trap, and you see the first Billy the puppet. But I say first trap because there's a lot of first traps in these Saw movies. Like Saw 5 had a first trap, and Saw freaking 8 had a first trap. But in this movie, the first trap is sort of this knife trap, which we'll get to in a second. But you have these flashbacks going on. Rigg is being put through some tests. And you also have a couple flashbacks to, Rigg's past. And you get to the end of the movie where Eric Matthews is in the movie again, Donnie Wahlberg returning. And Donnie Wahlberg doesn't do a bad job. It's just that he literally is... The Eric Matthews character is so pointless in this movie, it really doesn't make sense to have him back in this movie. He literally is here to die. That's all Eric Matthews' character's involvement is in this movie. He's here to die, and that's pretty much it. And... you have the end of the movie, which I want to spoil, but, I pretty much already did, but where Rigg, ends up finding out that he can't be involved in everything, that he can't save everybody. So he ends up killing Eric Matthews, and he also shoots this other guy from the beginning of the movie who had his mouth sewn shut, and he survived that trap, and I guess he's in another trap or another game. And he kind of is responsible for their deaths, and he also gets shot, so you think that maybe he bleeds out and he dies. And you have the twist where Hoffman gets up. You have a picture of Hoffman right there. Hoffman gets up. He's not dead. He kind of rigged his trap to where he wouldn't die. And the big twist is that, Hoffman is the new Jigsaw. The problem with that is you make him the most suspicious person in the freaking movie. Like, literally, And multiple critics have said this, but like Hoffman is just always in the background. He's always got to say something. He's always got to have those reaction shots. So it's like you make him the most obvious bad guy. You make him the most obvious suspicious person. You know, he kind of has just this ominous kind of presence to him. It's like, yeah, obviously he's the next Jigsaw, and that's a twist. And then also the second twist, what I thought was handled a lot better, was where you found out that this movie takes place same time as Saw 3. And you have Strom find out this place, and he goes there, and you have the Jeff character, and he shoots the Jeff character and kills him. And Strom gets locked in that same room that they were in. And the movie pretty much ends on that, where you have Hoffman walking out, you know, ending the game. And that's pretty much that. I mean, the story is just meh. And the flashback scenes, they don't really explain anything that we couldn't just figure out on our own. You know, because, like, you know, you found that Jill Tuck was pregnant, and, you know, there was this drug addict that tried to rob this hospital she was working at, and he's responsible for the baby's death. And you have John Kramer kind of just going to this dark depression. And, you know, him finding out about the cancer and then doing the first trap, which is a really cool trap. It's one of my favorite ones, where he puts this sort of like knife mask thing on this guy, and the guy has to push his face to the knife to touch this button that releases him from this chair. And the trap kind of breaks halfway through, but it's a cool concept. And that's the thing, is like, the movie is a time waster because it does have some pretty brutal and gory traps. You know, you have that trap, the knife trap. You have the beginning of the movie's trap where it's the two people fighting to the death. You have this one trap where it's a abusive wife and a husband, and I guess Jigsaw has figured out how to put these spikes to this girl, and I guess through her it's not anything vital. Like, he didn't really puncture any vital organs. But through the husband, he punctured his, you know, couple of the other vital organs that if he punctures, if the wife pulls these rods out, she, you know, kills her husband. And then ends up happening, it's a pretty brutal death scene. And, you know, you have Eric Matthews on the block of ice, and then the two giant blocks of ice crushing his head. You have the scene where this guy gets his freaking eyes gouged, or one of his eyes gouged out, and then gets every limb ripped off. I'm trying to think. You also have this really brutal trap where this girl has her hair caught in this machine, and it just tightens and tightens and tightens, and it pulls her scalp off of her. It pulls her hair off of her head, and you can even see like the scalp starting to show up here, and it's bloody and gory, and it's just brutal. So the traps were nailed in this movie. There were a lot of brutal, gory traps. A lot of them were practical. Yeah, you can kind of tell there was the obvious like CGI blood a couple times, but mainly they're very practical traps, and I really did think that they were really well done. But you gotta have more to the movie besides the traps. I mean, you have one half of the twist failing. You have no suspense, no thrills. The story is just so-so. It's not interesting at all. The movie has this just blah look to it. It's just like the lighting, the direction, the fast editing, which was done horribly in this movie. And in a lot of Saw movies, the sort of crazy, you know, lunatic editing that they have, the sped up camera work, is not done that bad, you know? And it's not until we get to Saw 4 and Saw 5 and Saw 7 where you have, there's annoying. In my opinion, Saw 1, 2, and 3 did the shaky cam, you know, sped up camera work really well. In this movie, it's really annoying. I mean, the lighting is awful too. It's very random lighting that I thought was done better in Saw 2 and Saw 3. You know, I get it that you know, they try to experiment with the lighting and try to give it different colors, but it just didn't work for me in this movie. It looked like it was just bleh on the screen. It looked awful. Direction by Darren Lynn Bousman. I don't know if it was the producers or if it was the company or if it was, you know, something else, but I don't know if he was being held back in this movie. I don't know what happened, but Saw 2 was great. Saw 3 was also great. And he has Saw 4 and just meh. It's like, meh, it's even direction wise, just meh. Like, I don't know what happened because Darren Lynn Bousman is a good director. Saw 2 and Saw 3 are directed very well. But here it's just like, meh. I mean, there's not much to it, not much energy to it. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's a sequel that is forgettable. It's got this sort of mystery to it that could have been an awesome mystery. This should have been one of the biggest Saw movies out of all of them. Because you have Saw 4, you don't know what's going on because Jigsaw is dead, but we have the awesome idea of having, maybe a mysterious second assistant who's going to be the next Jigsaw. And, it would have been cool to figure out, okay, who is it? Have a little bit of mystery to it. But no, they show Hoffman at the very beginning of the freaking movie, the very beginning of it, right after the autopsy scene, and it's like he's just so obvious. He's so obvious in that scene. He's so obvious in scenes after that. It's just like all the arrows are pointing at him and saying, yeah, he's the next Jigsaw. So that was just, it fell flat on its face. And I thought that Jigsaw, the 8th Saw movie, Jigsaw, that was done very well in that movie. And here it kind of fell flat on its face. That's why I say Saw 4 should have been one of the biggest ones because, it had a really awesome mystery behind it. But at least had the opportunity of having an awesome mystery. But it just failed. It failed in that. It failed in kind of trying to deliver a theme. Storyline was just dragging on, and it's a slow-paced movie. And I don't know. I think it doesn't really have that bad of a runtime. It's only an hour and 33 minutes, but it just drags. And between them switching back and forth between, here's a flashback, here's Strom, here's Rig going to another trap. It's like the movie's all over the place. When Strom is interviewing Jill Tuck, it's boring. There's no energy to it at all. I'm not really... And I think that Strom is a decent character. It's just there's not much to those scenes, those interrogation scenes. And, the flashbacks are decent. You're seeing a little bit about, Jigsaw becoming, who he was. Excuse me, I don't know why I burped like that. But becoming who he was, becoming the Jigsaw that we know. And developing the first Billy doll and the Billy the puppet, and then, the first trap. I mean, it was interesting, but it could have been a little bit more explored because we still had questions, But I don't know. I mean, it's a weird sequel that is just meh. It's just very just bleh to look at. It, that's why I said visual. Visually it looks bad. The script was just bad and lazy, and it's a weak one in the series. It's one that you're gonna watch and just go, all right, what's the next one? It's not what it should have been. This should have been a much bigger deal than what it was. That's what my problems with this movie is. And yeah, it's not a rant. The rant isn't in the title of this video, but the biggest problem for me is that besides like the pacing and the story being trashed and the twist just being trashed as well, is that it should have been much bigger than what it is. To a lot of people, it's just a downhill slide. It's where the series starts going downhill, and it should have been much bigger than that. It should have been a movie. It's like, all right, who is the killer? Who is the next Jigsaw? Intriguing storylines. Really, the only thing they nailed in this movie was the traps, because everything else was just blah and not done well. But yeah, I mean, Saw 4, it's just, to sum it up, it's wasted potential. It could have been such a better movie. But it does have good gore, practical effects, brutal traps, but that's probably all it's got going for it. Tobin Bell is good, decent, Strom is decent, Hoffman is okay. I actually really enjoyed Rig as a lead character because I thought that he was a good lead. But everybody else around him was just like either meh or just decent or just okay, it's just not much of a great sequel. It's just a forgettable movie. And I just don't really know what else to say about it. It's a very forgetful sequel. Um, and it's not fun to watch. It's not even that interesting to watch. It's just if you want to watch it for some good practical effects and a decent twist, or at least half the twist is decent. But yeah, Saw 4, one of the weaker ones. But that's pretty much all I gotta say about Saw 4. It's wasted potential. It could have been a much bigger movie than it should have. Than it. It could have been a much bigger film than it is, if I can say that right. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review on Saw 4. It's just it's a waste of potential. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. The Explorer 4 out. See you guys later.